The stars stretched out like scattered diamonds against the endless black of space. Ambassador Cole stood at the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge and watched them pass by. He had made this journey many times before. 15 years of talking to aliens, learning their customs, and trying to keep humanity safe in a galaxy full of things that could destroy them. But this trip was different. Behind him, sitting on a metal bench with her legs dangling above the floor, was his 7-year-old niece Lily. She held a small harness against her chest, and inside that harness was a honey badger named Biscuit. The animal was awake, his black eyes watching everything, but he made no sound. He never made much sound at all. Turned to look at the girl. She had not spoken more than a few words since he picked her up from Mars Colony 3 months ago. That was where her parents had died. A shuttle accident, they told him. Mechanical failure. Nothing anyone could have done. His brother had been a good man, a wildlife rescue worker who saved animals from illegal traders. Biscuit had been one of those animals, rescued when he was just a baby and raised alongside Lily since she was 4. Now they were all that was left of each other. The door behind them opened with a soft hiss. Commander Hayes walked in, his boots heavy on the metal floor. He was a tall man with hair and a face that had seen too many difficult decisions. He looked at Lily and the honey badger, and his expression became troubled. "Ambassador," he said, keeping his voice low, "I need to speak with you about our passengers." Nodded and walked with the commander to the far side of the room. They spoke quietly so Lily would not hear. "I have concerns about bringing that animal to Prime," Hayes said. "The Convergence Summit is not a place for pets. The eldest predators will be there, all 6 species. Do you understand what that means?" Understood perfectly. The eldest predators were the most feared hunters in the known galaxy. They had ruled through terror for longer than humanity had existed. Their representatives would be at the summit, along with thousands of other species. It was the most important diplomatic gathering in 40 years. "Biscuit is well trained," said. "He stays with Lily, she needs him." Hayes shook his head. "I looked up that animal in the Galactic Species Registry. The classification gave me chills, Ambassador. Terran Apex Variant, Threat Classification Unknown. Do you know what that means? It means that every species that has encountered honey badgers has failed to properly assess them. They do not fit into normal categories." Looked back at his niece. She was stroking Biscuit's head gently, her small fingers running through his coarse fur. The honey badger's eyes were half closed, but knew the animal was completely aware of everything happening in the room. "He is just an animal," said. 15 kilograms of fur and teeth. The eldest predators have conquered star systems. They will not be threatened by a honey badger." Hayes did not look convinced, but he said nothing more. He had his orders. The emergency summons from the High Council had come too quickly to arrange care for Lily back on Earth. There was no one else, so she came with him and Biscuit came with her. The journey to Prime took 6 days. During that time, tried to prepare Lily for what she would see. He showed her pictures of the different species they would meet. He explained that some of them looked scary, but that she should not be afraid. Lily listened quietly, nodding sometimes, but she rarely spoke. Her voice had become like a small bird hiding in a storm, too frightened to come out. Biscuit, on the other hand, showed no fear of anything. When crew members walked past their quarters, he watched them with calm interest. When the ship's engines made strange noises during a course correction, he did not flinch. When a security officer accidentally dropped a metal container with a loud crash, Biscuit simply turned his head toward the sound and then looked away, unimpressed. Began to understand why the Galactic Species Registry had classified the animal as it did. There was something unsettling about a creature that showed no fear response at all. Fear was natural. Fear kept living things alive. But honey badgers had evolved on Earth, a world so dangerous that fear had become a weakness rather than a strength. They had learned to face everything the same way, with a calm certainty that they would either win or die trying. On the 5th day, Lily spoke to for the first time in weeks. They were eating dinner in the small galley, just the two of them, with Biscuit eating strips of meat from a bowl on the floor. "Uncle," she said, her voice soft, "will the aliens hurt us?" Put down his fork and looked at her. She had her mother's eyes, big and brown and full of questions. He wished he could promise her that everything would be safe. But he had spent 15 years in galactic diplomacy, and he knew that safety was never guaranteed. "I will protect you," he said, "and Biscuit will protect you too." Lily looked down at the honey badger. Biscuit had finished his food and was now sitting beside her chair, his fur brushing against her leg. He looked up at her with those dark eyes that seemed to hold no emotion at all, just simple awareness. "Biscuit is not afraid of anything," Lily said. "No," agreed, "he is not. I want to be like him." Reached across the table and took her small hand in his. "You are braver than you know, Lily. You have been through something terrible and you are still here. That is its own kind of courage." Lily did not respond. She just held his hand and looked at Biscuit and could see something changing in her eyes. Not happiness, not yet, but something like the first light of dawn after a very long night. The next morning, Prime appeared in the viewport. It was a brown world, chosen for its neutral position and adjustable atmosphere. Thousands of ships orbited it already, vessels from hundreds of different species. The Convergence Summit had begun. As the horizon's edge began its descent toward the diplomatic quarter, felt a familiar tension in his chest. He had attended many summits before, but none like this. The eldest predators would be watching. The High Council would be judging. And somehow, he had to represent all of humanity while taking care of a traumatized child and her fearless honey badger. He looked at Lily, who was pressing her face against the viewport to see the planet below. Biscuit sat in his harness, watching the same view with no expression at all. "Here we go," said quietly. He had no idea how right he was. The landing platform was enormous. Had seen large structures before, but this one made him feel like an insect walking across a giant's table. Ships of every shape and size rested on the metal surface, and creatures of every kind moved between them. Some walked on 2 legs, some on 4, some on dozens. Some floated through the air on wings or gas bladders. Some crawled or slithered or hopped. Lily held his hand tightly as they walked toward the entrance of the diplomatic quarter. Biscuit rode in his harness against her chest, his head turning slowly to observe everything around them. The honey badger's nose twitched as he took in thousands of new scents, but his body remained relaxed. He was curious, not alarmed. A translation device hung around his neck, turning the various clicks, growls, and whistles of alien speech into English. He heard fragments of conversation as they passed, trade agreements, border disputes, old grudges, and new alliances. The galaxy was always talking, always arguing, always trying to gain advantage over someone else. At the entrance, a tall creature with blue skin and 4 arms checked their credentials. Its large eyes moved from Lily to Biscuit, and it made a strange sound that the translator turned into words. "Terran delegation, Ambassador Cole, 1 minor, 1." The creature paused and looked at Biscuit again. "1 animal companion. You are assigned to Quarter 7, Section 12. The welcome ceremony begins at the 5th hour." Thanked the creature and led Lily inside. The diplomatic quarter was a massive building with hallways wide enough for the largest species to pass through. The air smelled strange, a mix of chemicals designed to be breathable by as many life forms as possible. It was not pleasant, but it was not harmful either. Their quarters were small but comfortable. 2 beds, a bathroom that could adjust to human needs, and a window that looked out over the summit grounds. Helped Lily unpack her few belongings while Biscuit explored every corner of the room, sniffing at walls and furniture until he was satisfied that there were no threats. "We need to attend the welcome ceremony," told Lily. "Many important beings will be there. I need you to stay close to me and stay quiet. Can you do that?" Lily nodded. She had become very good at staying quiet. The welcome ceremony was held in a hall so large that could not see the far walls. Thousands of beings filled the space, arranged by species and delegation. Floating platforms carried those who could not walk on solid ground. Special chambers held those who needed different atmospheres. It was chaos organized into careful order. Found the area designated for humans. There were only 12 of them at the summit, a small group compared to the major powers. Humanity was still new to galactic politics, still learning the rules, still trying to prove that they deserved a place at the table. The ceremony began with the arrival of the eldest predators. Had read about them in briefing documents. He had seen pictures and videos, but nothing had prepared him for seeing them in person. They came first. They were massive reptiles, twice the height of a human, with scales the color of dried blood. Their eyes glowed with infrared vision, and their claws were long enough to tear through metal. They moved with the confidence of creatures who had never met anything they could not kill. They came next, carried on platforms because they rarely moved on their own. They looked like insects the size of cars, with too many legs and mandibles that dripped with digestive fluid. Their compound eyes reflected the light in strange patterns, knew that they could remain completely still for years, waiting for prey to come within reach. They emerged from a water-filled chamber, their bodies long and serpentine with bioluminescent lures hanging from their heads. In the deep oceans of there, those lights attracted prey into the darkness where they waited with mouths full of needle teeth. They moved as one, a pack of wolf-like creatures with silver fur and eyes that glowed with telepathic connection. They did not speak out loud because they did not need to. Their minds were linked together, making them a single hunting organism spread across many bodies. They descended from the shadows near the ceiling, their wings folding around them like cloaks. They had evolved to hunt in total darkness, killing without sound, leaving no trace. Even now, in a well-lit hall, they seemed to absorb the light around them. Finally, they entered. They were giants made of living stone, their bodies crackling with energy. They fed on the electromagnetic signatures of dying prey, and they had consumed civilizations before humanity had learned to make fire. These were the eldest predators, 6 species that had hunted the galaxy for millions of years. They had never bowed to anyone. As the ceremony continued, a young warrior separated from his group. He was smaller than the elders, his scales brighter, his movements quicker. He wanted to prove himself. He wanted to show strength. He walked toward the human delegation. Stepped forward, ready to offer diplomatic greetings, but they was not interested in him. The warrior's glowing eyes were fixed on Lily and the small creature in her harness. He stopped 3 meters away and began what his species considered a friendly threat display. His fangs extended, his claws spread wide. A deep, rumbling growl filled his chest. It was not an attack. It was a greeting between predators, a way of saying, "I am strong, acknowledge my strength." Most species responded with submission or their own display of power. Biscuit did neither. The honey badger simply looked at He did not growl. He did not bare his teeth. He did not puff up his fur or make himself look bigger. He just stared with those calm, dark eyes. The warrior stopped mid-growl. Something was wrong. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him, sending warnings that made no sense. He had faced creatures 10 times his size without hesitation. He had killed prey that fought back with claws and venom and fire. But this small Terran animal was different. They could not feel fear from the honey badger. There was no submission. There was no fight response. There was nothing but calm, absolute attention. It was like looking into the eyes of something that had never learned to be afraid, something that did not understand the concept of backing down. The warrior took a step backward, then another. His threat display collapsed, his claws retracted, his growl faded into silence. The other watched with confusion. So did the other eldest predators. Something strange had just happened. A creature that weighed less than a human child had made a warrior retreat without doing anything at all. Put his hand on Lily's shoulder. "We should go back to our quarters," he said quietly. As they walked away, he could feel the eyes of the eldest predators following them, not watching him, not watching Lily, watching Biscuit. And for the first time in 15 years of galactic diplomacy, Cole felt completely out of his depth. High Counselor and had lived for over 400 years. She was a member of the Neutral Worlds, a coalition of species that did not hunt and did not fight. They survived by being useful, by organizing, by keeping records and making peace between those who would otherwise destroy each other, and had presided over 7 convergent summits. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched species go extinct and new ones emerge from the darkness between stars. She had never seen the eldest predators afraid. But something was wrong at this summit. She could feel it in the way they moved, the way they spoke, the way they kept glancing toward the small human delegation in Quarter 7. The 6 greatest hunter species in the galaxy were nervous and needed to know why. She called a private meeting with the senior representatives of each predator species. They gathered in a shielded room where no one could listen, their massive bodies filling the space until it felt like a small stone surrounded by mountains. "Tell me what is happening," she said. "Why are you all so unsettled?" The elder spoke first. His voice was like gravel being crushed. "One of our young warriors encountered something at the welcome ceremony, a Terran creature, small, insignificant by any measure of size or strength. But when he tried to greet it properly, he felt something he has never felt before." "Fear," the pack mind whispered in unison. He felt fear, but not his own fear. He felt the absence of fear in the other, and that absence was more terrifying than any threat. And did not understand. "You are the eldest predators. You have conquered star systems. You have devoured civilizations. How can a small animal frighten you?" The elder moved. This alone sent ripples of alarm through the room, only moved to kill or to flee. They did not move for conversation, but the ancient shifted its massive body, repositioning itself as if trying to get further from something that was not even in the room. "We have studied Terran fauna," the said, its voice a series of clicks translated by N's device. "Earth is classified as a death world, Category 12, the highest level, but it is not the gravity or the radiation or the temperature that makes it dangerous. It is what those conditions have created." The matriarch rose from her water tank, her bioluminescent lures dimming. "Our ancestors left records of a scouting mission to Earth long before humans developed space travel. The scouts observed the wildlife. They watched a creature called a honey badger fight against overwhelming odds. Not once, not twice. Every time, it never surrendered, it never fled. It attacked until it won or died, and often, impossibly, it won. That is just stubbornness," and said, "Many creatures are stubborn." "No," the representative spoke, its voice like grinding mountains. "It is not stubbornness. Stubbornness implies resistance against something. This creature does not resist. It does not acknowledge that it should resist. It does not understand the concept of being outmatched. It looks at a predator 10 times its size and sees only a problem to be solved by violence." The Shadow Lord dropped from the ceiling, its wings spreading like darkness given form. "We are creatures of fear. All predators are. We use fear as a weapon. We rely on prey understanding that they should be afraid. But this Terran animal has no such understanding. When we look at it, we see something that does not fit into any category we know. It is not predator. It is not prey. It is something else entirely." And considered this. She had studied many species in her long life, but she had never encountered anything like what they were describing. "The creature is here at the summit, with the human ambassador and his young relative. What do you want me to do about it?" The predators exchanged glances. For a long moment, none of them spoke. Finally, the elder answered, "Nothing. We do not want you to do anything. We simply want you to understand that humanity has brought something to this summit that changes the balance of power in ways we do not fully understand." The meeting ended, but the unease did not go away. The next day, Ambassador Cole requested a private audience with the High Council to discuss humanity's petition for expanded trade routes, and granted it. She was curious to see this human and his strange companions for herself. The council chamber was vast, designed to hold representatives from 1,000 worlds. When the human delegation entered, every predator species representative went rigid and watched them carefully. These were beings who had faced death countless times without flinching. Now they sat frozen, their eyes fixed on a small girl carrying a furry animal in a chest harness. Cole began his presentation. He spoke well, with confidence and clarity. He made good arguments for why humanity deserved better trade access, but could not focus on his words. She was too busy watching the honey badger. The creature sat perfectly still in the girl's harness. Its black eyes moved slowly across the room, observing each of the eldest predators in turn. There was no aggression in its gaze, no fear, no curiosity even. It simply looked at them the way someone might look at furniture. The pack mind began to whisper among themselves, their telepathic communication leaking into audible sound. "It does not think like prey. It does not think like predator. It thinks like nothing we have ever encountered." The elder moved again, sliding further back into its position. 2 movements in 2 days, and had never seen a move twice in the same year. When finished his presentation, and raised a manipulator limb to signal a question. But before she could speak, the representative interrupted. "Ambassador Cole," the stone giant rumbled, "tell us about the creature your young relative carries." Look surprised. "Biscuit, he is a honey badger, a species native to Earth. He was rescued from illegal traders and has been with my niece since she was very young." "We know what it is," the said. "We want to know what it means." Frowned, "I do not understand the question." "Then we will explain." This body crackled with energy. "Your planet is a death world. It has produced creatures that defy every rule of survival we have observed in 1,000,000 years of existence. The honey badger is the expression of this defiance. It cannot be intimidated because it does not understand intimidation. It cannot be frightened because fear would require it to imagine failure. It faces every threat the same way, with absolute commitment to violence, regardless of the odds." The chamber was silent. Every eye was on Lily, and the small animal that had somehow become the center of attention. "We have conquered galaxies," the continued. "We have broken the spirits of countless species, but we look at that creature and we see something we cannot break, not because it is strong, because it does not know how to be broken." Lily looked down at Biscuit. The honey badger yawned, showing his teeth briefly, and then closed his eyes. He was not impressed by giants made of living stone. He was not impressed by anything. And for the first time in her long life, and understood why the eldest predators were afraid. The second day of the summit began with chaos. Woke to the sound of alarms echoing through the diplomatic quarter. Red lights flashed in the hallway outside his door. He grabbed his communication device and saw dozens of urgent messages filling the screen. Something terrible was happening. He dressed quickly and went to check on Lily. She was already awake, sitting on her bed with Biscuit in her lap. The honey badger's ears were turned toward the door, listening to the commotion outside, but his body was relaxed. Whatever was happening, he did not consider it a threat. "Stay here," told Lily. "Do not leave this room until I come back." He hurried to the central hall where diplomats from dozens of species had gathered. The scene was worse than he had imagined. On one side of the hall, the delegation had formed a battle line, their serpentine bodies coiled and ready to strike. On the other side, the had dropped from the ceiling, their wings spread wide, their claws extended. 2 eldest predator species were on the edge of war. High Counselor and stood between them, her voice amplified by translation devices, begging for calm. But neither side was listening. The matriarch was hissing accusations at the Shadow Lord. Something about ancient hunting accords. Something about territory violated centuries ago. The details did not matter. What mattered was that both sides had brought weapons, and both sides were ready to use them. Pushed through the crowd of watching diplomats until he reached and sighed. "What is happening?" he asked. "Old wounds," and said, her voice trembling. "The claim that the violated sacred hunting grounds during the third expansion. The say they have no proof. Both sides have been waiting for an excuse to fight for centuries. Can you stop them?" "I have tried. Neither will yield. The matriarch says that only a show of superior force will make them stand down, but no one here has superior force. The eldest predators are equals. If they fight, it will spread. Their allies will join. Dozens of star systems will burn." Looked at the two armies facing each other. He saw the hunger in this glowing lures. He saw the cold patience in this empty eyes. These were creatures that had been killing since before humanity existed. They knew only one way to solve problems. Then he noticed something that made his blood freeze. Lily was in the hall. She had not stayed in the room. Perhaps she had been scared by the alarms. Perhaps she had gone looking for him. It did not matter. She was here now, walking with small steps through the crowd, Biscuit in his harness against her chest. And she was walking directly toward the space between the two armies. "Lily, no!" shouted. But it was too late. The crowd had shifted and Lily had slipped through. She walked into the open ground between a killing zone where any sudden movement would trigger a massacre. She stopped in the middle, looking around with confused eyes, not understanding where she was or what was happening. The entire hall went silent. The warriors stared at the small human child. The hunters froze in place. No one moved. No one breathed. One wrong sound, one quick motion, and everything would explode into violence. Tried to push forward, but hands grabbed him and held him back. Other diplomats trying to protect him. They did not understand. His niece was going to die. Then Biscuit dropped from his harness. The honey badger landed on all fours in front of Lily. He turned to face his small body positioned between the child and the ancient hunters. He did not growl. He did not show his teeth. He did not puff up or make any threat display at all. He simply stood there. The matriarch looked at the creature. She had killed more than 1,000 sentient prey across her centuries of life. She had hunted in the darkest depths of alien oceans where no light ever reached. She had faced challenges from her own kind, from other predator species, from prey that fought back with everything they had. She had never known fear. But now, looking at this small Terran animal, she felt something stirring in the deepest parts of her mind. Something ancient, something primal, the urge to be somewhere else, anywhere else. "The Terran defies us," one of her warriors hissed. "No," the matriarch said slowly. Her bioluminescent lures dimmed until they barely glowed at all. "It does not defy us. It does not acknowledge that we are something to defy. To this creature, we are simply obstacles, things in its way. It does not see us as threats because it does not process threat the way other beings do." The Shadow Lord moved forward, curiosity replacing aggression. "Explain this," he demanded. "How can something so small show no fear of us?" The representative spoke from the back of the hall. "Because it has no imagination for fear. It cannot picture its own defeat. It cannot conceive of giving up. In its mind, there are only two possibilities, victory or death. And death is not something to be avoided. It is simply the end of fighting." The matriarch looked at the honey badger for a long moment. Then she looked at her own warriors. They were watching her, waiting for orders. She was their leader, their strongest fighter, their most experienced hunter. And she was afraid of a creature that weighed less than her smallest tentacle. "They were right," she said finally. "The humans have brought something to this summit that none of us can match. Not strength, Not speed, not cunning, but something far more dangerous. What? The Shadow Lord asked. Complete indifference to our power. The tension in the hall began to fade. The warriors relaxed their coils. They folded their wings. Neither side was willing to be the one to attack while that small creature stood watching them with its calm, dark eyes. Pushed through the crowd and reached Lily. He scooped her up in his arms, holding her tight. She wrapped her arms around his neck, and he could feel her trembling. I was scared, she whispered. I know, I know, but you are safe now. Biscuit climbed up Lily's leg and settled back into his harness. He looked at with those emotionless eyes, and for a moment could have sworn the honey badger was judging him for not being afraid enough. The crisis was over. Two species that had been ready to tear each other apart had backed down, not because of negotiation or threats or superior firepower. They had backed down because of a 15-kilogram animal that did not know how to surrender. And somewhere in the crowd, the eldest predators watched and understood that the galaxy had just changed forever. The final day of the summit arrived with a strange calm. The conflict between the and the had been resolved, not through official channels, but through something far more unusual. Neither side wanted to admit what had happened. Neither side wanted to say that a small Earth animal had stopped their war. But everyone knew the truth. The story had spread through the halls and ships like fire through dry grass. Spent the morning preparing for the closing ceremony. His trade petition was still pending, still waiting for the High Council's decision. He had done everything he could, made every argument, answered every question. Now all he could do was wait. Lily sat by the window of their quarters, watching the ships come and go from the landing platform. Biscuit was curled up in her lap, sleeping peacefully. He had saved thousands of lives the day before, prevented a war that would have burned across the galaxy, and he had done it all without making a single sound. Now he was napping as if nothing important had happened. Uncle, Lily said, why were those aliens so scared of Biscuit? Sat down beside her. It was a good question. He had been thinking about it all night. Do you remember what your father told you about honey badgers? He asked. Lily nodded. He said they never give up. He said they fight even when they should run away. That is right, and that is exactly what scared the aliens. They are used to creatures that understand when they are beaten. They are used to prey that runs and predators that calculate their chances of winning. But Biscuit does not do that. He does not think about whether he can win or lose. He just acts. Is that why they backed down? Yes. They looked at Biscuit and they saw something they had never encountered before. Something that does not fit into their understanding of the universe. They did not know what to do with him, so they did nothing. Lily stroked Biscuit's fur gently. The honey badger made a small sound in his sleep, something that might have been a purr if honey badgers could purr. I want to be like Biscuit, she said. I do not want to be scared anymore. Put his arm around her. Being scared is not bad, Lily. Fear can keep you safe. What makes Biscuit special is not that he does not feel fear. It is that he acts anyway. He does not let anything stop him from doing what he needs to do. Is that what you do when you talk to the aliens? Smiled. I try. It is not easy. These beings have been powerful for longer than humanity has existed. Sometimes it is hard not to feel small around them, but I remind myself that being small does not mean being weak. Your father understood that. He spent his life saving small animals because he knew that every life has value, no matter its size. Lily was quiet for a moment, then she said, I miss him. I know I miss him too. They sat together in silence, watching the ships and the stars, until a message arrived summoning them to the closing ceremony. The ceremony was held in the same massive hall where everything had happened the day before. Thousands of beings filled the space, arranged by species and delegation. The High Council sat on a raised platform, with High Counselor and at the center. The eldest predators occupied their positions of honor, their massive bodies still and watchful. Led Lily to the human delegation's area. He kept her close, one hand on her shoulder, Biscuit secure in his harness. He could feel the weight of attention on them, the eyes of ancient hunters tracking every movement. And began the closing announcements. Trade agreements were confirmed. Territorial disputes were resolved. New alliances were announced. The galaxy's business continued as it always had, species negotiating and compromising and occasionally threatening each other over resources and power. Then reached the section on new petitions. The human delegation has requested expanded trade routes through sectors 7 through 12, she announced. The High Council has reviewed this petition carefully. After consideration of all factors, the petition is granted. Felt a wave of relief wash through him. They had done it. Humanity would have better access to galactic trade, better opportunities for growth, better chances for survival in a dangerous universe. But N was not finished. The High Council has also passed an additional resolution, she continued. Effective immediately, Terran fauna are to be treated with the same diplomatic courtesies as sentient species. They are to be granted protected status under galactic law. Any harm done to a Terran animal will be treated as harm done to a diplomatic representative. A murmur went through the crowd. This was unprecedented. Animals had never been granted such status before, but no one objected. The eldest predators remained silent, their agreement implicit in their stillness. This resolution is not based on intelligence or communication ability, and explained. It is based on something far more fundamental. Terran life has evolved in conditions that produce something unique in the galaxy, something that we cannot fully understand or predict. The creatures of Earth do not follow the rules that govern other life forms. They do not surrender when they should surrender. They do not fear when they should fear. They are unpredictable in ways that demand our respect and caution. She looked directly at Lily. The humans have taught us something at this summit. They have reminded us that power is not always about size or strength or numbers. Sometimes power is simply the refusal to accept defeat. We honor that lesson today. The ceremony continued with other business, but barely heard it. He was too busy processing what had just happened. Humanity had not only achieved their trade goals, they had changed the way the galaxy viewed Earth and everything that lived on it. When the ceremony ended, the eldest predators did something that had never happened in recorded history. The 6 species gathered together and moved toward the human delegation. Their massive bodies blocked out the light, casting shadows across Lily and the other humans. Prepared himself for confrontation. His hand tightened on Lily's shoulder, but the predators did not attack. They bowed. They lowered their great reptilian heads, they dipped their bodies in a gesture of respect. The matriarch inclined her serpentine form. The pack bent as one organism. They folded their wings in acknowledgement. They bent their stone bodies with the sound of grinding mountains. They were not bowing to. They were not bowing to humanity's fleet or colonies or growing power. They were bowing to the 7-year-old girl who had barely spoken since losing her parents. They were bowing to the 15-kilogram honey badger who had taught the galaxy's greatest hunters the meaning of fearlessness. Lily looked up at these ancient beings, these monsters that had ruled through terror for millions of years. She did not flinch. She did not hide. She met their gaze with steady eyes. And for the first time in 3 months, she spoke clearly and firmly. "Thank you," she said. The elder rumbled in response. "No, little one, thank you, and thank your companion. You have reminded us that there is always more to learn, even after 1,000,000 years of existence." As the horizon's edge departed from Prime later that day, stood at the observation deck and watched the world shrink behind them. Lily sat nearby with Biscuit in her lap, her fingers scratching behind his ears. "The stars are pretty," she said. Smiled, she was talking more now. Small sentences, simple observations, but it was progress. The light was returning to her eyes bit by bit. "They are," he agreed. Biscuit yawned, showing his teeth briefly. Then he closed his eyes and settled into a comfortable position for sleep. He was not impressed by the stars. He was not impressed by ancient predators or galactic councils or trade agreements. He was just a honey badger, small and stubborn and completely fearless. And somehow, that had been enough to change everything. Sat down beside his niece and put his arm around her. Outside the viewport, the galaxy spread out in all its dangerous glory. There would be more challenges ahead, more negotiations, more moments of uncertainty. But for now, they were safe. They were together, and they had learned something important. Sometimes the smallest things can make the biggest difference. Lily leaned against her uncle and closed her eyes. Biscuit snored softly in her lap, and the horizon's edge carried them home through the stars.